Session. Good morning, everyone. I'm James, one of the NoLimits coaches here. I'm delighted to be joined by Al Tepper, somebody I describe as a marketing firework. I think you'll understand what that is in a minute when I light the touch paper and let him share some of his amazing tips and different perspectives. I think we've got quite a full packed session today. This is the beginning of a series that we're running, a Munch and Learn. This time every Tuesday you'll have a different coach and a different guest each week. I've just started recording on the session for those people who are on the school run or doing other stuff and need to watch it in their own time. Those people that are here live will have the opportunity to ask Al questions. Do you want to do that as you go, Al, or at the end?
I think at the end is probably safest.
Okay, we'll do that at the end because we've got a load to cover. And I know Al's happy to stay on a bit longer if we've got lots of questions. So save up your questions as you're going along, or if it's something hits you as you go along, put it in the chat box, and then I can ask Al at the end. So without further ado, Al, do you want to just introduce what you do before we kick in?
Yeah, cool. First of all, thank you, James. This is epic, and watching the community grow over the last couple of weeks has been mind-blowing. It's very rare you see a community grow that fast, so thank you for inviting me. I'm very grateful. So what do? I do two things. I've spent 25 years pressing all of the marketing buttons and doing all of the various jobs in marketing, all the way up to running the P&L of a brand. I now focus entirely, after all of that hard work, on the fun stuff that I enjoy, and that is marketing strategy. So that's what direction should you be going in that's going to make a difference, that's going to actually turn heads, that's going to stop people scrolling. And as well as strategy, I advise business leaders on how to become marketing leaders. So I coach them through the very uncomfortable journey of accepting that your business is not as important as your customers' journeys and pains, which most business owners struggle with, believe me. So that's what I do today. Absolutely.
It's like that old adage, isn't it? Everyone learns along the way that nobody gives a damn.
Sad but true.
Until you make them.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Al. I think one of the things that we spoke about and you alluded to is you said to me the other day that most businesses make quite a lot of marketing mistakes. Would you be able to elaborate on some of the common ones that you come across and the things that you think people need to be looking at and getting right? So
yeah, there's so many things we all do wrong, and I'm not here to throw stones and shade just because I enjoy that. I don't. I'd rather people didn't make mistakes, but the mistakes are there and they need to be pointed out.
Absolutely.
One of them clearly is that we expect other people to care about our business. We don't, and they don't. We have to help them understand the value. We have to help them see the journey. Or we have to help them see that we're on the journey with them. That's one massive mistake. We fail to get out of our head. And so we build marketing, whether it's content, whether it's websites, whatever it is, we build from the perspective of our perspective. And the hardest thing in business and in marketing to do is to get into their head. So that's one mistake. Another mistake, a very common one, this is the old adage, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
It's absolutely the most painful myth I have to clear up the mess of more of the time. People build websites and then say, but I'm getting no traffic, or people record a video and put it on their LinkedIn and then expect the world to suddenly change and move and shift and come to them. If you build it, they won't come. If you build it and you remind them about it endlessly and make it relevant and resonate, then they will. Then they may come. They may decide to show up. Another really common mistake is that people don't talk about things that customers care about. We often talk, and we know in business, nobody talks about, I hope nobody talks about features anymore, because some people still talk about benefits, but outcomes are all the customer cares about. If anything in your marketing is not pointed at the outcomes that your customer wants, then you're missing a trick. So audit your own marketing. Yes, speak about the features occasionally on a comparison page between two different plans. What features do you get access to? Talk about the benefits, case studies, testimonials, all of that stuff. But if you're not getting the customer to realize that you understand and empathize with the outcome they want, I think people struggle to make the jump. If you can't be bothered to do it, why on earth would your customer care enough? They won't. They'll just go to a competitor who's done the hard work for them.
Absolutely, really good
I
point.
could go on. There's loads of mistakes, but that's probably the top three.
The top three, yeah. So the first one you mentioned, I was expecting people to care, and you mentioned about getting into their heads, which, you know, is common. It's common sense to me, probably common sense to most people listening. But what are people, do you think, not doing, or what tips would you give people to actually get into that people's heads?
Okay, so one of the things I do for clients is, once we've done avatar development, once we know who the ideal customer is, and by the way, for all of my clients, they start with one ideal customer. They're not allowed to have a second ideal customer until they're executing brilliantly for the first ideal customer. Because another typical mistake is that businesses will have 10 avatars, 10 ideal customers, and they'll be doing a terrible job of reaching all 10 of them. I work with my clients, so we build the process and system, and we build the space for marketing within the business, so that they can at least even do the right thing for that first avatar. But the way to get out of our heads is, once you've built the avatar, define as much as you can, go into whatever level of granularity you feel is appropriate. And then at the end of that process, what I want you to do is, I want you to read back the avatar, describe that person. And if it's not a full enough description, add to it, keep adding to it until it's a full enough description. And then I want you to give it a name. I want you to name your avatar. Who is your ideal client? Is it Mary? Is it John? And then what I want you to do is, I want you to print out the description of your avatar. Go to LinkedIn, if you like, find the name of someone called Mary or John that's an HR director that happens to be your target. If you're targeting HR directors, go and find a picture of one of them, put the picture on that piece of paper, and then put that piece of paper on your wall next to where you work. And every time you make a marketing decision, ask Mary and ask John for their opinion. The sooner business owners realize that their customer has a seat at their table and involves them in as many decisions, especially around marketing, as possible, the better the marketing is going to be. Because if you ask your avatar a question, we're going to be sending out this fantastic email campaign, doing A, B, C. What do you think? What would your avatar say? If they wouldn't care, why would you run that campaign? If they wouldn't care about the post you're going to put on LinkedIn about birthday cake, if they're genuinely not going to care, why would you post it? Now, the only reason you'd post it is if it's not for the avatar. And sometimes we do things that are general and broad and not so specific. But if you're trying to get your avatar to come towards you, if you're trying to get your next customer, the campaign has to be relevant, 100%. Otherwise, it won't work. So that's one easy way. Print them out, put it on a piece of paper, put it next to where you work, and constantly remind yourself. And I'm not the first person to invent this. I can never pronounce the chap's last name, but Tony Say from Zappos wrote a fantastic book where he talked about they actually paid marketing. They had a person in the company called Mark Etting, and payroll didn't know who M. Eating was, and he paid marketing every month. So do things like this to make marketing have space in your business, because otherwise it won't have space in your business and you'll make terrible decisions.
I love it. So start with one. That's a really good.
Start with one.
Focus, get them right. Talk to them. It almost reminds me of the Napoleon Hill. He talked about his mastermind groups, and he talked to them constantly. So you're almost having a conversation with this make-believe person on your wall.
Well, you're not even almost. You are having a conversation. Markets are conversations. That was the first thesis in a book from 1999 called The Clue Train Manifesto, which was written by 3 internet luminaries, people who created pieces of the internet. And the Clue Train Manifesto was a collection of 95 theses on how the internet was going to change business from 1999. The first one blew me away for 6 months. The first one was markets are conversations. Markets are conversations. You're in a conversation with your audience, with your market, with your prospects, with your customers, with your ex-customers, with your future customers. You're in a conversation with them all the time. And that's why I argue that visibility is a choice. The reality is most business owners are too scared to show up for that conversation. Or if they show up for it, they show up in a very vanilla way, very gentle, very logical, very safe. But no one's going to react to logical and safe. They're going to react to information that I want to see. And if your competitor does a better job of getting me that information that I want to see, price be damned, doesn't really matter beyond that. If they connect with me, they've got at least 70% of the way there, I'd say.
That's really interesting. The visibility is a choice, you said. Visibility
is a choice, absolutely. No, I would say, sorry to interrupt, James, I would say 90% of the clients I work with, we will surface significant fear and imposter syndrome around their marketing. One of the biggest reasons people don't do their marketing is because of things like imposter syndrome and the fear of, well, what if I get judged and what if I get shamed? Invisibility is absolutely a choice.
Thank you. You didn't interrupt at all. You answered the question without me having to answer it, Al. Thank you. Thank you very, very much much indeed. So part of it is overcoming those fears.
Yeah. Well,
rather than any sort of technical skills of how to write an avatar or something like that.
Well, I think, look, I mean, it's all part of the mix, but one thing's for sure, you can, and I've worked with companies that have got a marketing department, a marketing plan, but if the CEO is reserved, if the CEO is worried, if the CEO or the MD is let's keep our powder dry. Let's be too humble rather than too confident. I've seen companies. The classic example I had an IT company who had nothing. They did nothing to talk about who they worked with and how they worked with them. And after sort of 2 meetings with them, it started to emerge. Their client list was epic. I'm talking Manchester United, Camelot, KPMG, and they weren't talking about it at all. And when we worked out why they weren't talking about it, it wasn't because they didn't know how to put together a case study. It's because the MD didn't want anyone to know, because what if people, there's what ifery, right? Never mind what aboutery, what ifery.
There's quite a few people that I speak to that don't like shouting about themselves.
Yeah.
What advice do you give them? Because that's why I come across that a lot.
Well, the question, they've got it all wrong. You've got to reframe the question and really urgent and quickly in their head. It's not that they don't want to shout about themselves. They are shouting about themselves. They're just doing it really badly. And worse than that, 100% of the time you're doing marketing. Every single person here right now, 100% of the time you're always doing marketing. The question is whose? You're either doing your marketing or you're just making it easier for competition. So if you're not shouting about it, if you're not being visible, who are you making it easy for? We're not making it easier for you. So if you're going to be in business, and you don't want to be visible, I would suggest not staying in business, because I really think you're going to struggle in today's climate. If you're choosing invisibility, I mean, life is hard enough. So you should rethink. But the reality to get out of it is to realize that when you're not doing your own marketing, when you're not shouting about yourself, you're just making it easier for your competition.
It's interesting because I often link that to the other thing that you've said, that it's not about you, it's about them. So I said, fine,
well, they need
shouting
you
about yourself. That's absolutely fine. It's not about you.
Yeah, I mean, well, but I think people struggle with the shouting about their successes, even when they've helped a client. They're really, do we want to claim that? I mean, is it really us? I've actually had people who've saved people, massive amounts of money. Yeah, but can we really take the credit? Well, yeah, because they paid you for a service, you did the job, and it worked. Why wouldn't you take the credit? And it goes back to that. It's a mental block. And in the UK especially, they have this less in the US, but in the UK especially, we're ever so humble, he says in a Uriah Heep kind of way. We're ever so humble. We just can't help ourselves in Britain. That's why Americans shout louder than us, and that's why they have a much more fluid and faster sales-led economy, for better or for worse. But they don't mind taking risks over there. The British, terribly risk averse when it comes to marketing and business.
Anyway, let's move on. You said to me the other day, and I love this, and it stuck with me. I deliberately didn't ask you about it. Authenticity is dead.
I actually said this about 3 years ago, for the first time, and it's massive and it's true. And I'm sorry to break it to everybody, but authenticity really is dead.
I'm all ears.
Authenticity is dead, and it died when some multi-level marketing person told me they were the most authentic person in the world and tried to get me to watch Simon Sinek's famous TED talk. This was 3 years ago. And I looked at this person and I thought, well, first of all, thank you for the Simon Sinek reference. I watched it in 2011 when it came out, because I'm in marketing. That's what I do. Number one. Number two, if you, Mr. MLM, awful human being, are the most authentic person I've ever met, if you can say you're authentic, which anyone can because it's unregulated, then every shyster and snake oil salesman on the planet will start saying they're authentic. And that's exactly what happened. Everyone's authentic now. I mean, even the people who aren't authentic are authentic. So authenticity's gone. It's no use anymore. And what I started thinking about 3 years ago was, if authenticity is dead, what does that mean? Does that mean I can't be me? I can't be real? I can't be authentic? Well, no, of course I can be true. I can be me. But we have to move past the saying of the word authentic. And so what I realized was, authenticity, anyone can claim to be authentic, but service is what sets us apart. Service is where the rubber hits the road and the BS has to deliver. And so anyone can say anything in business, and lots of people do. But the reality is, did they actually deliver? Did they serve? Did they look after you? And so what comes after authenticity is service. And that's why a lot of our content marketing, you'll see a lot of content marketing is outcome-based, helping people with points of pain, helping people, in a freemium way, early in the funnel, helping people, building rapport, establishing resonance and empathy, so that long before the buying process begins in the customer's mind, they're in information mode. And if you get them at information mode, when they get to the buying mode, you're a shoo-in. If you just try and sell to them in buying mode, being Mr. Authentic, it's not going to work. It doesn't work.
So, being controversial about this, being authentic is fine. Yeah. What you're saying is you can't claim I'm authentic. It's a anyone saying and being.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not something anyone should use to describe themselves. And by the way, the same is true of coaches. I used to be an American football coach, would you believe, in the UK. I know it's mad, but there's a team in Hertfordshire near where I live. And I used to coach. I used to play American football a long time ago. And when I started coaching, this was my first experience of any coaching in life, apart from being a father. I didn't call myself coach. I had a guru in the US, a coach that I listened to a lot. And he said, no coach ever calls themselves coach. Coach is what the people who you're coaching call you. So there's lots of people who go around calling themselves a coach. There's loads of coaches. We would all agree the world is awash with coaches. There's millions of coaches. There's coaches on everything.
Me on the call. I'm sure I've made that mistake on occasion.
Including me, James. I stand as a coach as well. But the reality is, I'm only a coach because my customers call me a coach. I'm not a coach because I decide I'm a coach. So it's the same thing with the word authenticity. You just can't call yourself authentic. You can't label, 100% authentic. It's meaningless.
Absolutely, because coach is just a label, a job description, isn't it? It's not the outcome.
Well, it's unregulated. It's unregulated as well.
People want the change or the result or what.
Yeah, you're there to guide them. Yeah, you're there to guide them, and it is unregulated, and that's what makes. And this isn't a plug for Action Coach, but that's what makes organizations like Action Coach slightly stronger than other coaching organizations, because in an unregulated market, you want some gravitational pull of certification. You want some collective approval. And so Action Coach, one of the values of that brand would be that it gives people an immediate coach label because they've gone through a process of learning and becoming a coach. There are way more business coaches in the world who have no official training other than having been in business for 25 years. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why we talk about action a lot, because it's about being and delivering, whether you're a coach or
Yeah. No,
whatever you are.
It's a great brand, isn't it? Because you attach the word action to coaching.
So the important thing is to be authentic. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be you. You have to do you, but you can't just wildly claim authenticity. The way you demonstrate you're authentic is through service, not by shouting about it. The way you demonstrate authenticity is service.
And this is a big question, but a lot of people ask, well, what's different about you? Comes up often when I speak to people, and they say service, and obviously they need to go deeper than that to define it. How do you draw that out of people to make sure that service is properly defined as something different in the experience they're offering?
Well, service is never really a value add. I mean, almost to a man and a woman, every client I speak to, when I first meet them and I ask them for their USP, oh, we save people time and money, and we really believe in customer service. Well, these are truisms. I don't think anyone in business stayed in business if they didn't save people time and money and didn't provide customers. I mean, these aren't value adds. These are kind of default settings, aren't they? So the way you address the problem is by asking yourself, why did your customers choose you? The best way to work out what's unique about you, and the way we start diving into USP, is we ask, why, if I spoke to your customers, what would they say was the defining difference that made them choose you? Why did they choose you? Because invariably that will point to your USP, because that's why they chose you. It doesn't matter what you think your USP is. If they think your USP was you're a lovely man, you might not have realized that, but you being a nice human actually stood you out from the rest of the crowd. It's not for us. We can only hope and infer what our USP is ultimately, but ultimately our customers will tell us. So let's ask them, what made you choose me? Anytime you onboard a customer, make that part of your onboarding process if it's not already. Why did you pick us? What made us different from the others? You were speaking to 4 web developers. Why did you pick us in the end? That whatever they say goes straight back into your marketing, because it will be the best example of what's unique about you. And you can also ask, by the way, why would customers, or why would prospects say no to you? If you want to work out where the gap is, why would customers say no? No, you can't ask.
I made a note of that. I really like that. I really like that idea, because you're close to the decision-making process if they've just joined as a business. So it's a perfect time to ask. If you ask them 6 months down the line, they'll have a different perspective.
They'll probably forgotten. They might have forgotten. Yeah, they might have forgotten. Yeah, get it as close as possible. Even on the sign-up call, even when they've messaged you, or they're on a call or an email or anything, we're coming on board. Fantastic. What made the difference? What separated us from the rest? Get to it as soon as possible, because that is some of the most powerful marketing you can ever, I think, genuinely unearth. Is the answer to the question. It's a classic testimonial question. To ask an existing client when you're asking for a testimonial, what would you say to somebody considering working with us?
Okay.
The sooner you get that stuff. So, when you've just onboarded someone, what made you choose us? What would you say to somebody else who's thinking about working with us? Even at that early stage, and get that written, get that in text form or recorded, and recycle it into quote, social media quote posts, testimonials. There's loads of stuff you can do that.
Excellent. Really powerful. I'm sure if I was in a room, I'll be able to see people's pens scribing away. I can't hear them because they're all on mute, listening,
clacking on keyboards,
listening away. So one metric. What's the most important metric that you talk about from a marketing perspective, Al?
So I'm a strategic marketer rather than operational marketer. So what I mean by that is, in marketing, I find that there's 2 groups. There's accountants and there's creatives. And I don't mean, there's no judgment attached to either. Both are needed, both are essential. Being at the strategy end, anything to do with spreadsheets, Gantt charts, data, it's not my jam anymore. I have people for that. I can't. I don't want to look at it. My brain was never wired to look at that stuff anyway. Even back in, when I was working for other people, I had other people do that. So when it comes to metrics, I love what what Einstein had to say. First of all, before I tell you the metric that I focus on, Einstein said, not everything worth measuring is measurable, and not everything measurable is worth measuring.
Yes, yeah.
I can't tell you how many clients I work with and rock up at the first meeting and they show me their stats or dashboard or KPIs or whatever. And if they just spent as much time on their marketing as they did on creating that beautiful spreadsheet with all their KPIs and data in, that's measuring absolutely nothing because they're actually not getting their marketing on because they're too busy designing beautiful spreadsheets. It happens all the time. And so the number one metric that I care about is what I call buzz. And I get a lot of pushback on this and I don't mind.
That's all right.
I've made a living out of buzz. And buzz to me is measurable in and of me. I can't help you measure it. It's a challenge. This is one of the biggest challenges I have. I can't help you measure it because it's not a logical metric. It's an intuitive metric. and I lose some people there right away. An intuitive metric, Al. Are you gonna use the word quantum next, Al? No, I'm not. I promise.
Yeah, we might struggle with those spreadsheet people here.
Right. Well, indeed. But the reality is,
what is it? What is buzz?
Intuitive buzz.
Al?
Intuitive buzz is what happens as your marketing starts, as you start executing your marketing, which you must do if we work together. You've got to execute. Otherwise, we.
Louise gets it. She's just put in the
Louise,
chat.
nice one, Louise. Thank you, Louise. So when your marketing starts to work, you will start to notice, and you can keep records of it and keep track of it. You will start to notice certain things slowly lifting up. All of those things like you'll get more direct messages on LinkedIn from prospects. You will get more engagement on LinkedIn from prospects. Your pipeline will fill with more prospects, as opposed to the time wasters that used to fill your pipeline. Do you remember them? You remember in the early days where lots of people wanted to have coffees? Everyone wants to meet for a coffee. No one wants to do any business. Total waste of time.
Yeah,
if you're in business.
Lots of people will resonate with those.
And we've all endless coffee meetings. And so intuitive buzz is working out for the client how they're going to be able to determine that it's working. And when I say it's working, go back to Markets Are Conversations. Markets Are Conversations from the Clue Train Manifesto. If you go to cluetrain.com, you can download the manifesto for free, by the way. So we go back to Markets as Conversations. If Markets are Conversations, and if my marketing's working, I should actually be able to feel myself moving into the middle of the market. And what that feels like is that there's more buzz around me. God, I haven't got any time. And typically this happens after about 3 months, where I'll message a client and I'll say, how's it going? And they'll say, can't talk, speak later. Okay, is everything okay? I know what's going on, but I'll just check in. Is everything okay? And they'll say, yeah, just smash. It's amazing. And then I'll not hear from them for 9-10 hours. And when they finally surface, they'll tell me. And the truth generally is, there's just too many people to speak to, Al. I need to qualify more and stronger. I need to get rid of, there's a lot of people, too many people, and I need to qualify even further. That's what intuitive buzz looks like. People start to get busy. People start to get more conversations, meaningful conversations, effective conversations, not just random ones. And that's why, for me, intuitive buzz has always worked since 2007-8. That's been my primary methodology, my primary metric. And so it's not something I specifically even measure. I just viscerally feel it now. I can feel when I'm creating buzz for me, or
feel the buzz.
Yeah, just feel the buzz. And if you can't feel it, that's because you're in logical mode, and you need to. Well, logic and intuition will have to work hand in hand. So you need to be across both.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because what you've described to some on one level resonates with what people used to commonly say about advertising, in the fact that you don't know which bit worked.
That's right.
but these days, going back to the spreadsheet side of things,
you're going to talk about attribution, aren't you? Yes.
It is possible to work out what works and what doesn't, and do more of it.
Absolutely.
Going on the other side, but let's complete the picture, Al.
Well, you're still gonna, if you, I don't do that. I don't care about that stuff. My team do, and they use it to make decisions about what email to send, and but those stats are what I would call operational stats. Those stats are telling me what's working on the ground today, right now, based on the conditions today. And there's a million variables in play. And I knew you would go to attribution. Attribution is one of the best and most fun parts of marketing, because again, what are you measuring and why? If there's something that leads to insight and thus creation of a business case, measure it. But I would say, I don't know, 90% of what most of my new clients are measuring is meaningless, but they think because they're measuring it, therefore everything's fixed. So one of the problems that I try and address is, just because you're measuring lots of stuff doesn't mean you're doing your marketing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So sometimes we get a bit paralysis analysis, don't we? We think if we analyze more stuff, it'll all just somehow get better. It reminds me of an old bumper sticker I once saw in the US, and it said, "Look busy, Jesus is coming." Just because you're looking busy, just because you've got loads of spreadsheets, just because you've got loads of KPIs and you're measuring absolutely every detail of everything, it doesn't mean your marketing's going to work. Fundamentally, marketing starts at strategy, not operations. And if you get the strategy wrong, it doesn't matter how good operationally you are, you're only going to incrementally move the dials so far. If you want to shift the dials, you've got to go back to strategy, because something's wrong. You're not connecting with people.
Absolutely. And those people that do employ metrics and don't rely on intuitive buzz, although I love it, Al, perhaps said a few picture, then what you've said there is really important. You've got to make sure that those metrics are right.
If you're going to measure something, challenge the hell out of them every quarter. Yeah. Every single one of them. Why are we still measuring this? What insight do we get from knowing that people prefer pineapple over pepperoni? What does it tell us? Or are we just measuring it for the sake of it? Absolutely.
Yeah, and I often find that the higher you can go on that is, how does that link to what the business is trying to do?
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
Then they're helpful, because sometimes the easiest things to measure are what it might be called, sometimes called vanity metrics.
This is what Einstein was saying. Not everything measurable is worth measuring. Yeah, and not everything worth measuring is measurable. There are classic examples where we can't know things, and even in attribution, even with digital marketing being the state it is, there's still cross attribution problems. We know. When I worked in retail, we knew, for example, there was an unmeasurable 10% of organic SEO that started in paid pay-per-click. We knew that 10% of organic SEO, the first time they'd ever heard of our brand, they'd searched for something, found us, and now they knew our brand. So the next time they searched for us, they knew about our brand because of pay-per-click. Pay-per-click does a great job, therefore, of PR, of just telling people you exist. Absolutely. Because you come up with the right. So there's loads of immeasurables in marketing, loads. And actually, that's quite a good gem, isn't it? 10% of people who come to your site would have started their journey one way or another on pay-per-click. So now everyone's thinking, well, I'm not running pay-per-click. So yeah, that means you're missing out on a chunk of people. They may not buy immediately, but because don't forget, Google's not a search engine, it's an intention engine. People go to Google with an intention, a problem to solve. That's why it works so well for pay-per-click. So if people are going and searching for something that you're the solution for, and you don't have any pay-per-click budget being spent, well, you're not in the game, are you? You're just relying on organic. No,
and to some people that might be fine if their organic is well, they've got good,
if they're a smaller business, James,
working for them, great.
Yeah, and if they're smaller in the earlier foothills of business, pay-per-click's a big reach. It's not something you get into lightly. But as you start to grow and you want to scale, if anyone here is in scale mode and not doing pay-per-click, why?
It's a great accelerator, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a great PR mechanism. Yeah, and it's that PR mechanism people don't realize how powerful that is, because even if they don't click on you, if they've searched for something and your name comes up, we know that if your name keeps coming up and they keep becoming familiar with your name, you're building your brand slowly but surely. You're chipping away and it's getting in there. They may never click one of your ads. They may see you in pay-per-click results 100 times, and you may build a brand relationship with them just by that visibility alone.
Excellent. Love it. Thank you very much indeed, Al. I'm going to open up the floor to see if we've got any questions. Please feel free. I know there's a lot of people still with us. We've gone past half past, but we thought we would. Have we got any questions from the room? You can either come off mute and ask, or you can tap them into the to the chat.
Not so much of a question. Not so much of a question, Al. But thank you very much. I going back to what James was saying. I have been scribbling and laughing and nodding and in different places. I really like. I work in the wellness complementary holistic industry. So right. you were saying all the words that I totally resonate with in terms of intuition and buzz and feeling, because I find that. And I liked that you actually have separated now what's I've been wondering about for many moons, and that's strategic versus operational. And yeah. And I like that. I had to pop out for 2 seconds when you started talking about the word coaching. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen to that, because I think there's something in there that I need to hear today. So I really appreciate that, because I'm been in the wellness industry. And anyway, I'm not going to bore you with it all, but I've been looking at what I call holistic strategy. And it's not just about marketing, it's about how wellness people market themselves, because we're terrible as I shouldn't say that, but as an industry, we're not great at marketing ourselves, because we want to help everybody and have that healing aspect to it. So when we talk about marketing, there's some guilt around marketing, because we should be just gifting everything and whatever. So that's a separate issue altogether. So where I'm going with this, Al, is thank you, because the strategic versus the operation makes absolute sense. And I love I've heard the Einstein thing before, but anyway, there's loads of stuff there. So thank you.
You're very welcome, Louise. And just to let you know, my wife's a Reiki healer. And I'm Reiki attuned. So energy was an unavoidable thing for the last 10 years of my life. I was a cynical marketeer, scientific, not really, I used to be very operational, focused, and actually marrying my wife and having our son, and especially the last 10, 12 years, my mind has really been blown by the power of energy. And so as a marketeer, I can't measure energy.
No.
And I can't, and measuring sentiment, unless you're a massive organization with access to sentiment analysis tools on social media, it's hard work. So you have to come up, especially for small business, you have to have other mechanisms. And the proof is this: one of the best things, and thank you for sort of pushing this into my mind, but one of the best ways to work out if your marketing's working is, are you speaking to more people? If your marketing's working and you're moving to the middle of that conversation, which is always happening in your market, if you imagine yourself moving to the middle of a party, the noise gets louder in the middle of the party. You should be having more conversations if you're in the middle of the room. And it always reminds me of the opening bars to Wham's Club Tropicana, if you're old enough like me to remember it. Do you remember how it starts?
Unfortunately,
with someone,
yes.
Right, it starts with someone, well, they close the car door and they're walking up to a party, and it gets louder and louder, doesn't it? And then eventually it's like, hey George, and everyone, and then the music kicks in and there's drinks. That's what buzz should feel like. It should feel like Club Tropicana is playing in real time in your life, and you are entering a party and it is getting louder and louder. And if it's not doing that, something's wrong.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
We've got quite a few. A couple of people have had to go, but I've got lots of thanks in the chat. So intuitive marketing is great. Great session. Thank you, Al. Adam, thanks all. Just on that whole buzz, let's end it on the buzz. If somebody's not feeling the buzz, they're not in that space yet, where's the first place they go? What advice do you give them, Al?
5 questions. 5 questions they need to ask themselves. And to those of you that have stayed, this is your golden gem for being here. So thank you. What do you say? What, as a business, what do you say? And refine that to a sentence. What do you say? What's the most important thing you've got to say? How do you say it? It's question 2. How do you say it? So what words do you use? Where are you going to say it? You know, what platforms, what formats? You know, how are you going to encapsulate what you need to get across? Who do you say it to? Who do you say it to? So this is into a little bit of understanding your customer. Why will they care?
Yeah, love it.
Why will they care? And if they won't care, start again and keep going until they will care. So you've got to give them a reason to care, and then what action should they take?
Yeah.
Because if what you say and how you say it is to the right person and it makes them care, and you give them an action to take, a percentage of them will take the action. It depends on what the cost of the action, the risk of the action, the value of the action. You know, that's why freemium works. If you give people a free chance to do something and it's credible, they may do it. There's a big debate that rages forever about free versus paid. But to be honest, I'm not sure I've ever come down on one side or another. It's not about whether the value is irrelevant, actually. The cost, I mean. The value is very relevant. The cost of something is very irrelevant. And I always say to clients, if people are telling you, if people are using price as an objection, your marketing has failed. If people are using price as an objection, your marketing has failed. Because your marketing should be standing up every tick box that they need to tick before they even speak to you, so that the risk of working with you is very low, but the reward is very high. If your marketing hasn't done that, and you're now on a call trying to justify your price to someone, I think that's a fail. So you can fix it by answering those questions. It's not rocket science. I wish it was brain surgery, James. I wish it was brain surgery, but it's not. It's really not.
But so many people forget those questions, even those that know it. Forget those questions and dive into execution a lot of the time.
Yeah, because if I'm working harder, if I'm working till 1 a.m. and I'm busy, then surely I deserve to succeed in business. Well, that's no reason to succeed in business ever. You know, in fact, doing more, in fact, I would argue for me, I now work less than I've ever worked for more money than I've ever earned. So time, the correlation or the notion that the harder you work, the more money you make, those days are gone. We're not in sort of industrial Victorian era. You know, absolutely. It's not about time for money anymore.
No,
you know, it's about value.
Excellent. So five simple questions. Yeah. Ending interestingly in action.
Of course.
Often the you know, I often relate this to people sort of, I often relate it to dating, you know, because often, you know, particularly within social media, there's a whole relationship, a whole conversation to had over many occasions or touch points, aren't there? So the action's got to be relative to the occasion and where you are within the relationship.
Yeah, and that brings me back to attribution, by the way, just to say that one of the biggest challenges with attribution is how do we attribution soft marketing versus hard marketing? So hard marketing is something with a call to action, a buy now button, away we go. I live in a world of soft and hard calls to action. So when you go to a website, if you just have a hard call to action, buy now, I think there's arguments for and against, but I would have a soft call to action next to it. Download our free audit. So buy now, download our free audit. Buy now is a hard call to action, but most people will not be ready to buy now. And Absolutely. If all you offer them is the chance to buy now, well, you're missing a trick to grow your database.
Yeah.
And once they're on your database in your funnel, you've got more chance of getting them to the buy now than if you'd have just let them wander off because you didn't offer them a soft call to action. And so attribution, it's a really interesting point here around attribution, around what you were just saying, around, you know, the point that we can't possibly expect, and nor should we expect, to know everything either. One of the problems with digital marketing is it's grown a generation of marketeers who don't remember what life was like before digital marketing. I remember. I still know how to do marketing without the internet. And there's a very big difference, because we live in a world where people buy from people even more today. Because of digital marketing, people buy from people even more today. Not less, more. So when you buy something from Amazon.com, you're buying something from Jeff Bezos. Everyone here, I'm sure, has bought something from Amazon in the last month. It's kind of a given now. Every human being alive is an Amazon customer, right? But the reality is, and I'll prove it to you, you're having a conversation with Jeff Bezos, or rather, actually, Jeff Bezos is having a conversation with you. He's starting a conversation with you via his website, Amazon.com. And the proof is that his values filter down through the organization. And if his values change, your purchasing decision might change. And that happens all the time. When the values of the coffee industry changed, the fair trade industry was born. When the owner of CrossFit stood up and said all lives matter instead of Black Lives Matter, he had to, within a matter of weeks, sell his company, because the backlash from a lot of his gym owners of all colors, of all races, of all nationalities, the backlash was so profound, it probably cost him a few $1 billion. So if you don't think you're having a conversation with Jeff Bezos, next time you buy from Amazon, ask yourself what would happen if he were exposed the next day as shooting baby dolphins with a harpoon. Jeff Bezos found shooting baby dolphins with a harpoon, shocker on the Daily Mail. Would you still buy from Amazon? I think a lot of people wouldn't.
Absolutely.
And that's the proof that people buy from people.
Absolutely. It's interesting because I was reading a letter from Jeff Bezos that he'd sent internally to his team way back in the 90s, and being obsessed about what his customers wanted and serving them was a massive part of that message. And that's certainly something that you've talked around in different language.
It's the only reason they survived. 9 years and 3/4 Amazon didn't declare a profit. That doesn't happen in an American-based economy that is quarterly based. If you have a bad quarter, the board loses their job, right? Amazon, 9 years and 3/4 no profit. You couldn't build that business without service at its core.
Absolutely.
And then in year 10, we know what happened next.
Absolutely, yeah. Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Al. Thank you for staying on and answering questions above and beyond as usual.
I love the chance. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you, and I'll see you very soon. If anyone's got any other questions, then ask them in the No Limits community, and I'm sure Al will jump on and answer them for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone, for joining, and see you next time.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Al.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.